Hi there, I'm Alicia May and I am half English, half Polish. On my previous video I talked about my first impressions of Poland and why I like it and how I felt here. And today I'd like to talk about my mum's perspective, so how she felt when we moved here. If you don't know, she is 100% Polish, so to speak. She was born and raised in England. So the first time she came to Poland was actually when she came with me. And we came over here just to visit, just to see Poland and what it was like, and both my parents fell in love with the country and decided to move. As my mum was raised by Polish parents, she had Polish books, she talked in Polish, but it was all limited, of course, because it was all in England. So when she moved here, she actually found that she didn't know as much as she thought she did. My mum always identified herself as more Polish than English due to her nationality, although document-wise she only had British nationality. And she really looked forward to coming over to Poland and seeing the land of her ancestors and meeting people. What came as a shock to her was that, of course, she came over here with British nationality, so she had to fill in all the same forms as her husband, my dad, and she also realized that her English was a lot stronger than her Polish. That was, of course, because of her education in England, and it came as a shock when people turned to her as an English person. And she was like, what? Why do you think I'm English? But yeah, that came as a shock to her at first. Another thing that surprised her was the fact that in England we have mother and toddler groups, and here in Poland not so much. At least back in the days there weren't such groups. So she did feel kind of lonely at the very beginning because the only people that she did know were church friends, thank goodness for them, but still they were busy sometimes too, right? And as I was quite young and my brother was even younger, she had to, of course, stay with us at home alone most of the time. Well, with my dad as well, but as in she didn't have any friends, girlfriends, so to speak, and other people to talk to at the very beginning. Another noticeable difference was that Polish people are very keen on giving advice. And now this is something I actually laughed about when I read the essay that my mum actually gave me. I asked both my mum and dad to answer some of my questions, the same that I was writing, and both of them, funnily enough, gave me literally an essay. So I'm trying to shorten it down and just give you the main facts. But another noticeable difference was that, for example, during winter, at some points I wouldn't wear a hat. And that's because we're not used to doing that. Like in England, it's never that cold, or even if it is, yes, sometimes you will wear a hat, but people in England just dress a little bit differently than in Poland. And we're just used to the cooler weather because we have it all year round, don't we? And in Poland, there are literally all 4 seasons, so you get to experience every single weather. So one day I didn't wear my hat, and a lady came up to my mum and was like, oh, how dare you not put a hat on her head, she's going to get cold. And literally the same week another lady came up to us, and this time I did have a hat on. Hey, I even had a hoodie over my hat. And the lady came up to us and she was like, your baby's gonna get too hot, you know, she's going to overheat and you can't do that. How dare you do that to your child? And my mum was like, wait a minute. How am I to dress my child then? Like in England, people wouldn't even dare to come up to you and give you any sort of comment, let alone literally say something like that. So that was like a noticeable difference. And this is only one of the examples, but this has happened and still happens, quite frankly. As I mentioned before, of course, the seasons. In Poland, you have all 4 seasons. You get the hot weather, and it's literally hot. And the cold weather is freezing. It has changed during the years, hasn't it? Like in England, you do get some hot days. You have got some snow sometimes, somewhere. But in Poland, like, this was quite normal for years. It has, of course, changed due to global warming, which is very sad. But we do still get quite a fair amount of different types of weathers, so to speak. So this was quite a difference, and something that both my parents actually did really enjoy. And school time as well was quite different. We started school about 7 a.m. and finished, well, 7 a.m. that was later on, not like primary school. Primary school about 8. But we would finish school about 1, 2 p.m. Of course, it depends on the school, but this is like the norm. Whereas in England, you usually start about 9 till 4, wouldn't you? Something like that. So, of course, it depends on the school, but that's something that was a difference as well. And my mum was shocked. She was like, oh wow, so you get so much time to play with the children, which is great. Of course, like I said, the very beginning was quite hard for her because she was thought of as a Brit, and even though she did know Polish very well, she had to find herself in this new culture. And after a few years of myself going to school, my younger brother going to school, and then when my youngest brother was born and went to school as well, my mum made some mum friends outside of that one community that she did have, which was lovely, and she still is friends with them now. So there aren't like mother toddler groups and things like that, maybe in bigger cities, but in the smaller city that we were brought up, there weren't. My mum was super excited about the doctors as well. It's funny because a lot of Polish people that I know, whom I've talked to, and myself, I mean, nowadays, if I actually think about my experience with the doctors, I don't actually think I would praise many of them. Some of them, yes, of course, I have met great doctors, but all in all, I wouldn't praise them as much as my mum does. She has, of course, got the experience in England and Poland. So she says that in England, you don't really get like, I mean, you would get antibiotics, but she's never heard of probiotics, and mainly you just get paracetamol and you're good to go. And I mean, I can see that happening. Something my mum has actually written like a few sentences about. She was super surprised that even when it was like super cold, how much did she say? -20 degrees Celsius. Sometimes it actually does get colder than that, like -26 or more. People still go to work, people still go to schools, you just drive slower, you change your tires. She can't imagine that happening in England. I do remember a few times when there was a little bit of snow. There was this one time, I think I was like 4 or 5, and I was literally by the window and praying for snow, and the next day snow did come and everything closed. As England wasn't really prepared for that. People don't change their tires. People did address her differently because they all thought of her as English, and she would introduce herself as a Polish person. But yeah, she found out being over here in Poland that there's more to it. There's the culture differences, and she does love Polish people, of course. She said that nowadays, when she actually thinks about moving to a different country, she thinks that she would rather want to stay here. And it's not saying that she doesn't like England. She loves the people that she remembers there and has family, but she's just become so used to Poland, and the people that she's family with, so to speak, family with here, are very close to her and close to her heart. So that's my mum's part of the story. It's actually quite short. I've tried to put in a little bit more that I actually remember myself, because my mum actually didn't answer all the questions. But if you have any more questions about like how my mum felt being Polish and living in England, actually yeah, being Polish and living in England could actually be quite interesting. But also moving over here as somebody who thought was Polish until she came over here and realized actually her English is a lot stronger. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments below and I'll let her know that you have more questions and maybe she'll answer them. We'll see about that. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!